Chapter 31 The Deep. The robot swam down along the cliffside and into the deep. As she descended, the ocean grew darker, and the weight of the water above grew heavier. Roz was an amazingly durable machine, but if she went too deep, she'd be crushed by the immense water pressure. Before she reached the dangerous depth, however, she arrived at the bottom of the cliff. Very little light was visible. Only a faint blue glow could be seen. High up at the surface, Roz switched on her headlights. Click, and shafts of light beamed out from her eyes. Then she turned her head and took in the dim underwater world. Behind her, the cliff rose up and out of sight. In front of her, the flat ocean floor spread away into darkness. All around her, specks of debris drifted through the water. Roz started marching, and plumes of silt blowed up from each footfall. In such still water, she was able to move easily, covering a lot of ground in a short time. On her way, she passed bizarre sea creatures, paddling, twirling, pulsing. Some creatures were transparent, and some had spiky teeth jutting from their jaws, and some wiggled down into the muck. Eyes glinted in the shadows. Soft noises echoed from afar. This was an eerie alien place. The robot became aware of a gurgling sound, and then a cluster of towering rocks emerged. From the top of each tower spewed scalding hot water that had bubbled up from deep underground. The warmth attracted a wide array of living things. Gardens of corals and sponges and flowery sea anemones clung to the rocks and danced in the whirling currents. Crawling throughout the gardens were shrimps and crabs. A giant sea star crept over a crowd of clams. Hungry fish floated nearby and eyed the assortment of tasty creatures. Of particular interest to Roz was a sea slug. Sea slugs might seem disgusting to you, reader, but this one was beautiful. It was colored in shades of pink and orange and purple like a sunset. On its back were feathery fins that shimmered in the light. The robot searched through her computer brain to identify the species. Her brain was filled with knowledge about every known animal in the world, but her search came up empty. And then Rose realized that this type of sea slug was unknown. She had discovered a new species. "Hello, sea slug. My name is Roz." The slug fluttered its fins in a way that meant, "Please don't eat me." "I do not eat anything, including sea slugs," said the robot. "Oh, that's good to know," said the slug. "You're not from around here, are you?" "I am only passing through on my journey to stop the poison tide." The slug's body stiffened. "We've heard terrible stories about the poison tide. I can't bear to think what would happen if it ever came down here." "I will do everything in my power to make sure that never happens," said the robot. While marching away, Roz wondered how many other animal species had yet to be discovered in the deep. She wondered how many of them were at risk of being wiped out by the poison tide. Chapter 32 The Darkness. A month had passed since Roz left the island. According to her calculations, she had traveled hundreds of miles, but she still had hundreds more to go. The tireless robot continued north, on and on, toward the waters where the ancient shark roamed. If you travel far enough north, you will reach an area where the sun never sets in summer. And Roz had traveled far enough north. Up at the surface, there was constant daylight all day, every day, until autumn. However, our robot was at a depth below the reach of the sun, and yet there was occasional glimmers. Certain deep-sea fish had glowing fins, while others had glowing teeth, and still others had spindly glowing lures that dangled from their heads. Jellyfish came in every shape imaginable, and many of them gave off a ghostly light. Most gleaming creatures kept their distance. Roz would see a flicker, and as her headlights swept toward it, the creature vanished into the murky haze. She was marching down a long slope that descended to the deepest trenches of the ocean when she felt her survival instinct tingling. The weight of all the water above was becoming too great. If she went much deeper, she'd be crushed from the pressure. So Roz stopped marching downhill and started swimming at a safer depth, and the ocean floor quickly faded from view. The robot's limbs paddled automatically, which left her mind free to wander. Specks of debris floated all around, like a gentle snowfall, and suddenly she was recalling the snowfalls she'd experienced on land. She thought of blizzards on the island and flurries on Hilltop Farm. She remembered Dr. Malovo and felt grateful to have a waterproof body. She thought of Brightbill and Glimmer and wondered if their eggs had already hatched. Thoughts continued drifting in and out of her mind as she swam on and on through the deep, dark ocean. Chapter 33. The Hunter. Clickety-click. A strange sound was echoing from the deep. Clickety-clickety-click. Over the course of her life, Roz had communicated with many kinds of animals, but she had never heard an animal sound like this. Clickety-clickety-clickety-click. Something darted past. It was a squid. No, it was 10 squid. No, it was hundreds of squid, each one as long as the robot. Fins flapping, tentacles trailing behind them. Their long bodies were flashing bright red in a way that meant, "Swim for your lives!" You see, the squid were being hunted. Roz turned and joined the squid, desperate to escape whatever was hunting them. As they darted by, the squid released puffs of black ink to hide themselves, and Roz found herself lost in an inky cloud. When the ink cleared, the squid were gone, and the hunter was closing in. Clickety-clickety-clickety-clickety. The clicking sound grew faster and stronger, becoming a continuous buzz. Then a giant toothy mouth surged out from the darkness and beat down on Roz. Teeth grinded against her body, and her pain sensors flared. But the mouth had expected to find a soft, slimy squid. Instead, it found a hard, tough robot. Before any real damage was done, the giant mouth spit Roz out. When the robot looked back, she saw that the clickety-clickety creature was a sperm whale. The whale's low voice grumbled, "What kind of squid are you?" "I'm not a squid. I am a robot. My name is Roz." "Were you trying to fool me?" said the whale. "I don't like being fooled." "I did not mean to fool you," Roz explained. "I was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time." Judging from the whale's many scars, he knew what it was like to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. "A friend of mine is a whale," said Roz. "She saved my life. Do you know a whale named Coral?" "No, I don't know Coral. Do you think all whales know each other? There are thousands of whales in the ocean, and you think we all know each other. That's ridiculous." "I apologize if I offended you," said Roz. "This is my first time traveling through the ocean, and I still have a lot to learn." "It's fine," said the whale. "I am angry because so many animals are heading south. They're afraid of the poison tide. It's getting harder to find food, and I was just about to catch a mouthful of squid, but I ended up catching you." "If it makes you feel any better," said Roz, "I am on a mission to stop the poison tide." At this, the whale released a series of snorts and grunts, and Roz realized he was laughing. When the whale's laughter subsided, he said, "You think you can stop the poison tide? You must be joking. The poison tide is fast, and it spreads farther every day. I am a giant, and even I couldn't stop the poison tide. A puny creature like you has no chance." Then the whale started laughing again. "I will not be alone," said Roz. "I'm searching for the ancient shark. Together, I know she and I will succeed." The whale stopped laughing. "Oh, well, that's different. With the ancient shark's help, you might actually have a chance. And if you succeed, the animals will return, and the hunting will be easier. You know, it's a good thing I didn't eat you, Roz." "I agree," said the robot. The whale's belly groaned with hunger, and he said, "I'd better chase down those squid before they go south too." He then swung his mighty tail and surged away, back into the dark. Clickety, clickety, click. Chapter 34. The Clicking Robot. Dolphins, porpoises, and certain types of whales use echolocation to navigate the ocean. They create bursts of sound, and by listening for the echo, they are able to locate the distant objects. It's the perfect way to see in the dark, and Roz wanted to give it a try. Using her voice, the robot let out a powerful clickety-clickety-click. Then she waited for the sounds to bounce off something, anything, and echo back to her. She waited and waited, but there was no echo. Was she doing it wrong? While the robot swam through the deep, she let out bursts of clicks and hoped that eventually she'd hear them echoing back to her. And eventually she did. It was quiet, barely a whisper, but Roz definitely heard her own echo. It seemed to be coming from her left, so she headed in that direction and let out another round of clicks. This time, the echo was a little stronger, and she knew she was getting closer. Roz continued clicking, and the echoes returned more quickly and loudly each time, until she came across a huge jellyfish. The robot had tracked down the only other creature in the area. Echolocation worked. "Hello, jellyfish," said the robot. "I'm very happy to meet you." The jellyfish waved his tentacles in a way that meant, well, honestly, Roz wasn't quite sure what it meant. No matter, she was just excited to have a new way to navigate. She switched off her headlights and continued to swim north in total darkness, clicking every few seconds and listening for echoes. Chapter 35. The Haze. Clickety, clickety, click. Roz kept clicking, but no echoes had bounced back in nearly a day. There must have been nothing else around. She swam on through the ocean in total darkness, in total emptiness. Our robot had never felt so alone. But she wasn't alone. A gentle current started flowing upward as a glowing haze rose from the depth. The haze was made of countless specks of light, all traveling together. One of the specks passed by Rose's face. She adjusted her vision and saw that it was a tiny glowing creature, no bigger than a grain of sand. A swarm of them was floating through the deep ocean. The robot searched through her computer brain and found words like plankton or bioluminescence. Tiny plants and animals floated throughout the world's oceans, and many of them glowed softly. Roz realized she was never really alone. Living things were everywhere. She simply had to look for them. The robot continued on, swimming through those points of light like she was in the night sky, and the stars were all around.